Good day. My name is Via Ballesteros, together with Baracchio, Francisco, Maulyon, Ragudo, and Rabino. We are here to present 10 Filipino artworks and its respective artists.
This artwork is called Espolarium. It is created in 1884 by Juan Luna. Brief history of the painting. The Espolarium, often misspelled Espolarium, is a painting by Filipino painter Juan Luna. Luna, working on canvas, spent 8 months completing the painting which depicts dying gladiators. The painting was submitted by Luna to the Exposition Nacional de Bellas Artes in 1884 in Madrid, where it garnered the first gold medal out of 3. Brief history of the artist. Juan Luna de San Pedro y Novicio Ancheta, who was more commonly known as Juan Luna, is regarded as one of the first internationally renowned Filipino artists. Along with being an artist, he was also widely known political activist of the Philippine Revolution of the late 19th century. Luna was one of the first recognized painter and artists in the Philippines. His work was focused on European academics of his time and therefore included a lot of depiction of historical and literary scenes. Along with this, there was an underlining of political and social commentary in his works, which is highlighted by a slight touch of romanticism. All perspective as an artist. Spolarium the Paint shows how the Filipinos were treated before when they were colonized by Spaniards. The purpose of Luna for painting Spolarium is to awaken Filipinos from ignorance, blindness, mental darkness, and oppression. This monument is called Bonifacio Monument, created in 1933 by the artist Guillermo Tolentino. Brief history of the monument. The Andres Bonifacio Monument, commonly known simply as Bonifacio Monument or Monumento, is a memorial monument in Caloocan, Philippines, which was designed by the national artist Guillermo Tolentino to commemorate Philippine Revolutionary Andres Bonifacio, the founder and supremo of the Katipunan. Brief history of the artist. Guillermo Estrella Tolentino is most famous for his work, the Bonifacio Monument, which became the symbol of the freedom struggle of the Philippines. He was said to be a product of the Filipino arts revival period of the early and mid-20th century. He was also credited for making the statues of President Quezon and various other life-size bust and marble statues of important figures in the history of the Philippines. Own perspective as an artist. The Bonifacio Monument recalls the Philippine Revolution, which was spearheaded by Andres Bonifacio, who had urged his men to rise against the colonial rule of Spain. It is considered the most symbolic of all the monuments in the country, even grander than Moto Stella.
The title of this painting is Rice Planting by Fernando Amorsolo on 1951. This painting falls under classification of painting as genre painting, as it is painted in the contemporary life of a Filipino farmers in 1951, when it was painted as they are engaged in their regular everyday occupation and activities. Behind the workers, a farmer with the carabao plows in the background is a cluster of nipa huts along the thick accumulation of trees and weeds. Let's have a background for Fernando Amorsolo. Fernando Amorsolo spent his childhood in a small town which became the foundation for his artistic career. Having lost his father at the age of 11, his mother worked to make ends meet. At 13, Amorsolo became an apprentice to De La Rosa, and from there he began his painting career. He is most famous for his mastery over playing with light. Thus, his most well-known style and technique of painting include illuminated landscapes, which were used to portray the culture, history, and the native life of Filipinos. I would say that this painting has a relationship with Amorsolo. His works usually depicts people and barrio scenes of the Philippines. Those paintings of the nationalistic, the true character, smiles, emotions, or feelings and spirits of the Filipino people which says something about his creation that falls in the same classification. The title of this painting is Sabel in Blue by Benedicto Cabrera on 1969. Sabel in Blue is a major subject that recurs through Benckab's works through the decades. Inspired by a real-life scavenger, he photographed and sketched in 1965. The Sabel image has become the artist's vehicle for the transmission of intensely emotional moods. When pushed to the limits of abstraction, the Sabel image served as a fertile ground for the investigation of shape and structure. Benedicto Reyes Cabrera is regarded as the best-selling painter of his generation of Filipino artists. He was introduced to art by his elder brother Salvador, who was also an established painter. While studying at the University of the Philippines, he explored various forms of art which included printmaking and photography. He eventually established his own unique form of painting. Cabrera's work is essentially figurative, and he uses fabrics and patterns to bring to life the figures in his paintings. His work is majorly focused on women, but sometimes also depicts men. In the year 1963, he won the first prize in a student competition for one of his oil paintings, which is known as the Talipapa or a market. The artist emphasized the face of Sabel, which is plain but full of emotions. He made use of primary and bright colors, contrasted with dark background, directing the eyes of the viewers to Sabel's face. At first look, the work has an impression of grief, loneliness, and madness. The lines are geometric and abstract, arranged in a diagonal and curvilinear manner. The curvilinear lines give an effective, natural feeling.
This artwork is called Bayanihan, and this was created by the year 1962. The artist of this artwork is none other than Botong Francisco. By the brief history of the painting, Bayanihan is an Asian Filipino ritual of neighbors, assisting neighbors by gathering enough volunteers to carry and actually move the entire house. They accomplish this by laying long bamboo poles lengthwise and crosswise beneath the building, and then carrying the house on this bamboo frame. By the brief history of the artist, Carlos Botong Francisco was the sole practitioner of the long-forgotten craft of mural painting for nearly 3 decades. He was heavily linked with modernist artists, creating what was then known in local art circles as the Triumvirate. Alongside Victoria Cid Edades and Galo Campo, Botong's unfailing eye for a composition, the lush tropical sense of color, and the firm belief in the folk virtues represented by the Angono residents were the trademarks of his work. As my own perspective as an artist, the artwork conveys itself extremely clearly and profoundly, displaying Filipino characteristics by following their historical tradition of assisting neighbors in relocation, gathering enough volunteers to carry the complete house, and transferring to new area. Everything is done in a cheerful and festive spirit, and towards the end of the day.
España y Filipinas, made by Juan Luna in 1886. Juan Luna's España y Filipinas is an allegorical painting, using 2 female figures to represent the colonial relationship between Spain and the Philippines. The work was painted at the height of Luna's career, following public acclaim for his monumental canvas, Espolarium. There are multiple versions of this painting, with this version having made for Luna's friend, the nationalist intellectual Pedro Paterno. Juan Luna was born in Badoc, Philippines in 1857 and died in 1899. He began his art practice studies in Manila, but then relocated to Europe to develop his career. The Philippines was rocked by revolution and battles for independence from Spain during his lifetime. In his latter years, Luna would strive for Philippine independence. Although it is an oil-on-canvas masterpiece that depicts a tight relationship between Spain and the Philippines through feminine characters, it is a propaganda picture that reveals the actual aspiration and desire of Filipino propagandists in the 19th century.
Filipina, a racial identity crisis. Year 1990. Artist Pasita Abad. Brief history of the painting. The painting focuses on two women. The first Queen Maria Isabel, very much influenced by Spaniards, and the brown-complexioned Liwayway ethnica comes from the original Malay tribes scattered in the villages all over the country. They represent the opposing racial strains that make the modern-day Filipina confuse who she is behind the color of her skin. Brief history of the artist. The celebrated Philippine-American artist Pasita Abad, 1956-2004, was born in Batanes on a small island in the South China Sea. Her 32-year career began with her studies at the Corcoran School of Art, Washington, D.C., and the Art Students League in New York City. Abad became a nomadic artist, painting the globe while working on 6 continents. She created more than 4,500 works that have been exhibited in hundreds of museums and galleries around the world. Own perspective. Abad depicts a schism in Filipino identity created by colonialism, in which she properly showed on the painting by giving both of them equal space on the canvas. The painting portrayed the message that when one's identity is colonized, which tradition does one's identity belong? The colonizer's identity or from the roots? Madonna of the Slums, year 1950. Artist Vicente Manansala. Brief history of the painting. Madonna of the Slums is a painting by Vicente Manansala. It is considered a key modernist painting of the 1950s. It belongs to the National Museum collection, measuring 86.5 times 61 centimeters. It is painted on masonite board. Madonna of the Slums is a picture of the urban poor set in the slums that appeared at the end of the war. It is expressive of the feelings of anxiety and insecurity of the time. The shades of brown used emphasize the dirty, shabby appearance of the shanties with their roofs put together from scraps, as well as the discomfort of the people who lived there. The central image is of a keen and watchful mother whose child's hand is against her face in a gesture that suggests protection against the harshness of life. Brief history of the artist. Vicente Silva Manansala was a Filipino cubist painter and illustrator. He is famous for his own style of art, which is bringing the provincial and city lives together or separately to show their differences and reflections of reality. He was born on January 22, 1910 in Macabebe, Philippines, and died on August 22, 1981 in Manila, Philippines due to lung cancer. Own perspective. Manansala greatly and perfectly portrayed the hardship people are facing every day living in the slums, not having someone to rely except their own family or their own selves. It gives awareness on the truth on how everyone has their own difficult battles to fight with. The battles these people are fighting are not chosen by them and why caused by the inequality the society caused by the rapid changing.
This painting is called La Laguna Estigia, made in the year of 1887 by the artist Felix Resurrección Hidalgo. For the brief history of the painting is based on Dante Alighieri's 14th century epic poem Inferno. This poem is about the journey through hell, where hell is depicted as a place that has 9 concentric circles which represent the different levels of sins and wickedness. The 5th circle of hell, which is known as wrath, is located in the river of Styx. This painting portrays Hidalgo's dark and mysterious interpretation of the poem. It gained a silver medal during the General Exhibition of the Philippines in Madrid 1887. For the brief history of the artist, Felix Resurrección Hidalgo is known as one of the great Filipino painters of the late 19th century. He was born on February 21, 1865 in Binondo, Manila and died at the age of 58 on March 13, 1913 in Barcelona, Spain. My first impression of the painting is darkness and pain. It portrays the screams and cries of damaged souls as they suffer from great punishment, whilst the people who are riding the boat get more anxious and guilty as they await for their own punishments. The painting is like a warning or a message to people of what the afterlife may look like. This painting is called The Builders, made in the year of 1928 by the artist Victorio Edades. The Builders is one of the major works that was displayed in the first one-man show of Victorio Edades at the Philippine Columbia Club. This painting uses structural and linear composition to bring forward the essence of the painting, and the human bodies in the painting clearly depicts the hard labor of men. The Builders supported Edades to his campaign to promote modernism in Filipino art. Victorio Edades led the revolutionary 13 Moderns who believed and promoted modernism in artworks. He was born on December 23, 1895 in Dagupan, Pangasinan and died at the age of 89 on March 7, 1985 in Davao City, Philippines. The first and strongest impression that this painting gives me is hard work. It successfully portrayed how hard these men in the painting are working. Victorio Edades not only showed the labor of these men in the painting, but he also made the viewers feel what they were feeling. That is all for our presentation. Thank you for listening, and let us continue supporting our own artists.